Hi team, I want to share with you some interesting learnings from here. So I found here they are doing exactly the same as what we are calling Agaciro back in Rwanda, but there are some differences in the way they are doing, and I found theirs is somehow stabilized based on how I had a conversation with the team here. So starting with the material, as you can see, we take these, they take this big mesh, which they use for sieving river sand. Their river sand is even much bigger than ours. As a result, after sieving, this mesh is like 1 to 8 inch, and as a result, they end up having this kind of sand, which if you look closer, it looks like Nyabihu sand or normal river sand. It's much bigger, much bigger. And then they mix with, interestingly, what they call, for us in Rwanda we call loam soil. Normal soil people cultivate, for them is clay. So they told me this clay, which surprisingly it's not sticking, is the one they use. They take this clay, but they sieve because they have some gravels. Then after sieving, they end up having these types of clay, which is still like normal loam soil you have in Rwanda. And for example, if you mix with water, you will don't see it as really sticking on the hand. It is still normal loam soil. You see? So then they mix the ratio of this big sand to this clay, ratio of 1 to 2. A ratio of 1 to 2. That's what they are using as an explanation they gave me, is because they are using too much clay, because already this clay it has some sand, and it's not like really sticking clay. So I want to show you how now we are practically doing it, and how we end up having a smooth floor and well leveled. Now we are doing the floor inside, which as I said, look exactly like normal Agaciro we do in Rwanda. But this house has 300 years ago. It is very old, and if I want to show you how now the Agaciro on the ground really is, and how it is thick. As you can see, before we start laying down on doing the floor, we started filling normal party which is down. We have such coarse sand remains after sieving or even before sieving. So then after filling the part that are more down, so that they can be leveled. But the way we fill, we take the normal mortar, we take the sand, and then mix with the clay, and then with water, mortar like this, and then we go filling this part that are more down, like this. So to get down party, well leveled and flat. So after doing this, now we go for the screeding. If you look on the screeding, there are many interesting ideas. One, the thickness is much bigger. Secondly, there is in terms of leveling, we are using this wooden frame. And the third, we are not using additional water at all. And then the fourth, the screed is much solid. It is, if you compare with what we are using in Rwanda, ours is more liquid. So for example, if you press this one, you can't see water coming out. With my much energy, it is hard to get water coming down. So as a result, it looks more dry, more dry. So those are the 4 different things. For leveling, I want to show you like small example. This is my team. We are building it together, and on this side, that's where I'll be laying down. Before you start screeding, you need to make sure the ground is a little bit wet with some kind of amount of water. The reason why for adding water is for to welcome the screed, and so that once you put your screed, it's not fastly drying because the ground is too dry. And then after doing this, you take the wooden frame, which this wooden frame help to get the for guiding, as a guiding for the entire screed level. So as a result, we end up having this well flat screed. And then once we finish building in this frame of wood, we went to home before we finish. But what we do, we make sure we create this junction. This junction, we went home, we're leaving them, so that once we come, we cover with this plastic to prevent this end from drying. And then in our way back, we start from there in such a way. We take the sun, like how my neighbor is doing, start filling this. But since it looks like it is dry, we have to take little amount of water on this end, start making a little bit wet again. The reason why for doing this is to prevent the junction to appear. So if you don't do this, the junction will come up here and you will see like you have many different parts of the screed in the entire house. So by doing this and then sinking into the, helping this screed to sink, and then you started laying the wooden frame again, and then you continue. So for example, like if I emphasize on this side, I want to screed a little bit 130, and then so that you can see how the frame really makes a difference and end up making this whole house really well leveled. So you use your finger to make sure the screed is fitting into the frame, but also you make sure you don't exceed the frame level, because the frame is like guiding. And then after using the finger so that you ensure you get level, you take your wooden frame. As I said, you never use water at all. You go. So if it is not well filled, you end up adding a little more and even more screed. You can feel some part it doesn't have much, it's a little bit down, which you feel. So after doing this, what do? You remove this, and then you remove this. So you see there is kind of two lines. So you create the junction to fill these lines, and even here to fill these lines. And then you take your screed, then you go back, you place to fill in. Make sure you don't exceed, and even here you make sure you don't exceed. You use natural hand, and then the next you take again the wood, then you try to get it leveled. Try to place it again. from there, you take metallic floor, which is this color, but also you never put into water or sprinkle much water. You never. Then you go like this. Then you continue the same process. Now you put your wooden frame from here, and then you repeat the process of watering this area, and then until you finish. This is my friend. She's called.
Hi.
Your name is
Cindy
from Bolivia. And then here is the expert in this construction called Angela.
I'm Angela.
Yeah. And we have another good man called Isaac. So they are good teachers. They have been helping me to learn a lot on how we can do a good agachiro flow. Thank you very much. Okay. So we are laughing because now we are getting to another very important part of the flowing day. So as you can see today, I'm wearing different from how I was in the previous party. Means this is the second day, right?
Yeah.
The second day.
Next day.
The next day.
The day after we lay all the floor down.
So now, yesterday we were here, rain, this is screwed down. It's a little bit dry. But I want to welcome Angela, telling us why we do this and how this is why for having this styrofoam.
Yes. So what we're doing is overnight the floor thickened up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's not wet and squishy, but it's not dry enough for us to walk on it. If we walked on it, we would leave a whole bunch of marks. But if we use the styrofoam, it's very light. We can stand on it and we can move around. It's something wide that distributes our weight so that while I'm kneeling like this, I'm not making a knee mark in the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we're working our way out of the room, so we have a bunch of these. So you could probably do this with plywood or a piece of wood or something heavier too, but with that it's really hard to pick it up and move it without harming the floor. You don't want to drag it.
You just lift up.
You just lift up and you kind of hop around and then work your way out of the building, so that so we did all this stuff over there and we're not going to go over there anymore.
Yeah.
So we're going to loop around and go out the door, and what we're doing is taking some rigid trowels and pressing
like this.
these points.
So why are we doing this? So?
We're doing this to compress it a little bit more. It just makes a really nice texture. So sometimes, there's a kind of porous, open texture. And if we press it when it's at the stage when it's not completely dry, we call it leather hard, then you can press it down and make it all smooth and a really nice texture. And also what we're doing is that we have a lot of straw in here. And there's some spots
straw acting as fiber
to hold it together and also to make it beautiful because people really like the way it looks with the straw.
Yeah, which is different from Rwanda. In Rwanda, when you have these straw fibers, people pretend to don't like it.
Yeah, but then they live with it for a while and they really like it.
Definitely.
Yeah. So it looks very beautiful, but there are some straw pieces that are sticking up and don't want to lie down when we press it. So what we're doing is we're pulling them up and then pressing them and patching it with some plaster from yesterday if it has a hole and it still
Yeah.
needs to do that.
Which is this amount we have here. So,
Yeah.
what is the usual? This is the fibers that was up. We pull off.
Mm-hmm.
Then when we are pulling off, we press this like down. Then we jump it up.
Yes, because if you just take the piece of straw and pull it up, it could pull up a big chunk.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes it's connected to a larger piece, sometimes there's pieces of straw all connected, and you don't want to bring up a whole lot. So if you hold it down with your trowel and then slowly pull it up, it'll make a very small hole instead of a big hole.
What is the usual thickness of the styrofoam? The thickness?
I think this is 1 inch. That's bigger. I usually use just, people usually have scraps around from building their house left over.
But it's high dense.
Yeah, it's a rigid foam.
Rigid foam.
But even just that idea of using something light that distributes your weight.
Equally.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Another important different part of how we are breeding in here, which is different from Rwanda, is we don't have a print, which I was explaining yesterday. Why so? We don't breed the print.
I usually do. I usually mask everything really well. But this one, it would have taken some calculations to figure out the height of where we were going because it was so uneven all around. And this looks pretty flat, but the base coat was very uneven. And also because this is a mud wall, so sometimes I would tape something to it. It wouldn't stick very well. And the wall is so curvy, you can't just put a board up against it or something. So I figured that was something we can come back later in detail and make it look really beautiful as long as we were careful about it. So I think it turned out good. But usually when I'm working in people's houses, I mask the walls really well.
Yeah, I want to ask 2 remaining questions. One is, what is the lifespan of this floor? And then the reason why asking this question, back in Rwanda I think we might have different lifespan, but I would like you to tell me what is like usual lifespan of this floor. In Rwanda, this floor will be called as agaciro because we don't have a maram underneath. We just come and ride the screed on the top of natural terrain, right? It will be like normal agaciro in Rwanda. We call it agaciro in Rwanda, but here you call it normal floor, like Earthen floor. Fine. But what is based on your experience and at that floor you build, what is the lifespan of this kind of the floor?
Well, what do you do? Do you oil it?
Yeah, in Rwanda we add flaxseed oil, which acts like linseed oil.
At the end?
Yeah, at the end. Yeah, after.
And does that protect it well? Or?
Yeah, it protects it well because it's waterproof. It is hard, it is scratch resistant, it is abrasion resistant. People can clean. Yeah, but based on your experience here in the US, what is the lifespan of this floor?
It all depends how you treat it and what the conditions are around it. So I've seen floors last, I don't know. This is still kind of, the way we're doing this now is sort of new. So it's not really long enough to be able to say 30 years, because we haven't been doing it this way for 30 years. But all the ones that I've worked on at least 10 years ago are still really beautiful. But what we tend to do is take our shoes off at the door and don't walk on these. We put little pads under our furniture legs. Don't drag the furniture. If you drop something heavy, it'll make a little mark. You can fix that. You can re-oil it. So I think they have a very long lifespan, but it all depends.
What happened after 10 years in the US?
I haven't seen any of these fail or go bad.
You haven't seen any of these fail?
No.
Oh.
I mean, some of them in installation of people doing it wrong, but in terms of them coming out all nice and them lasting a long time, everyone I've seen has lasted really well. And they get cracks sometimes, all adobe floors get cracks,
Mm.
but then you patch them and you fix them, or you live with it with a crack in it, and
Mm.
people don't even notice it. It's fine.
Another question: how does people think about how it is smooth? I know this kind of sand was kind of little bit sand particles appearing, and we were using 1 to 8 mesh size and mixing with the clay. How does people feel about this smoothness? They think it is smooth, like how they interpret it?
Yeah, it's smoother over there because we started with the sand that we sifted through the 8-inch screen.
Mm.
But then we started running out of sand, so we were using the bigger particles.
Mm.
So that's why over here it's a little bit more open and rougher.
Mm.
But it's not so much how it looks with that. We press it like this so that it will be all smooth and nice. But once you oil this, it'll be just fine and it will feel smooth. Even if it, yeah.
Oh wow, interesting.
Yeah. People like that you can see everything that's in it. It's made out of clay, sand, and straw, and you can see the clay, and you can see the sand, and you can see the straw. But it's a uniform thing.
The last question will be: have you done to repair the floor? Have you experienced the kind of repairing the floor? And what was the cause of that?
Different things like cracks or, like I said, people dropping things on it. So it makes a little gouge. So they fix up fine. You can usually see where you fixed it. It's a little bit different. But also with floors, you have stuff on the floor. You have a table, you have a piece of furniture, you have a rug. So like it all blends in to the matrix of what makes the floor beautiful. And a lot of this kind of stuff is the beauty of it wearing away. So we don't want it, it's not going to stay perfect like we just laid the floor forever, but it's going to get some wounds and some dings, and just like people, it's okay.
Besides the straw, do you have another straw, other fibers you can recommend? Besides these straw fibers, do you know other fibers?
Straw works great.
Doesn't matter in size or length?
No, you want them pretty small.
Like inch?
Usually I chop the straw and screen it a couple times through an 1/8-inch screen. At least 2 times.
8-inch screen. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the more you chop it, sometimes I'll chop it twice. Sometimes I'll chop it, screen it, chop it again, screen it again. The finer you can make it, the better, and the less you have going around with all these pieces sticking up.
So it means the less husk can be much better because it is naturally small.
Yeah.
Wow, wonderful. Bye. So this is like the summary. This lady is called
Cindy.
Is it from
Bolivia.
And Angela has been helping us to understand how here in the US they build the floor, and I appreciate. I think I'll be taking these practices, these new learnings back in Rwanda, and we can try. So it is very exciting. I'm really impressed by how it is smooth and well leveled and well flat. Wow.